Fully self-supported, declining outside contributions. We'll now pass around the basket. This is a weekly step meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the step of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, and do not forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. Okay, that brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day. Let's see, it's March 24th, 2025 in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, at the Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Zack, and he's going to be sharing his experience, strength, and hope, and also his experience with Step 10. Please give us a warm welcome to Zack.
Go Zack.
What's going on, everybody? My name's Zack, and I am definitely an alcoholic.
Hey, Zack.
Thank you guys so much for being
I thought
here.
I was supposed to fill.
Oh, it's all right. Now I got your numbers. Now I got your number.
Oh, yeah, I did see it.
That's good, dude. You're great. Thank you.
Good.
All good.
Thanks, everybody, for letting me be of service and come here and speak to everybody today. I used to get, anytime I had to talk in front of any groups of people of any kind, AA meetings and other things, very nerve-wracking. I'm a very self-conscious person. I'm very obsessed with myself, and anytime I had to do things like that, it was, a lot of what am I going to say and planning this stuff out, and that's how I had to go about. I mean, I was the kid who do you remember maybe third grade when they'd go around the room and everyone would read, and so you had paragraphs that you would need to read and it was going on to the next person? I had to count how many people, how many paragraphs until mine, and now I got to rehearse my paragraph so that way I don't sound like an idiot when I speak to everybody. And then somebody would always read 2 paragraphs and mess it all up, and then I was ruined, and I don't have to do that today. Now I get to, someone can ask me to come speak at a meeting, and all I have to do is be honest and, show up and just be honest about my experience. And that was, not only was that not likely, that was impossible for me for a long time to be. I didn't even know what honesty meant. There was blatant lies that you could tell, but being an honest person was the opposite of who I was. I was a extremely compulsive liar. I'd lie about what I had for lunch that afternoon. I don't know why. If I had ham sandwich, I told you it was turkey. Why? In my head, turkey sounded better. Maybe you thought I was. You would not respect me because I had a ham sandwich that day, and all this delusional, crazy thoughts would go through my head. And I just get to show up today, and it's so relieving, to just be able to walk in and be honest. So it's on the 10th step. Anytime I have to speak on a specific step, I find it very difficult to do without getting into all of the ones beforehand. So I'm going to qualify just a little bit, talk a little bit about my experience with the first 9, and then a little bit about the 10. So I am an alcoholic. Took me a long time to realize what an alcoholic really was. I actually, for a long time, I sort of wore what I thought an alcoholic was as a badge of honor. I drank more than everybody else. I could keep drinking, and I was that guy. I was actually sober. I'm a late bloomer. I was sober through all of high school. After graduation, I didn't go to my first party until because I told everybody that I partied all the time. I had never been to a party. If you asked anybody in my high school, they were like, "Hey, Zack's so much of a party animal. He's going to parties we've never even heard about. He's invited to places we don't go because we ain't never seen him at any of these places." So I'm primed and ready to be. I got to back up a little bit. So I'm a homeschooled pastor's kid. So I was homeschooled most of my life. I did go to high school. My dad's a pastor. I grew up in the church, watching him going through that whole thing. Up until about 16, I thought that I wanted to be a pastor too, just sort of follow in his footsteps. That didn't pan out so great. I sort of lost my way from that whole thing. About 16, I started to go away. 18, I move out of the house. I'm like, I can't take this anymore. These people don't know what they're talking about. They're crazy. And I still stone cold sober, uncomfortable is how I can describe like most of my life leading up until this point. Like wildly uncomfortable. I would get a bad haircut. I would cry. Like I'm like 14, 15 years old, and I got like what I think is like too short of a haircut, and like I cannot fathom walking into school and like everybody seeing me, and just so uncomfortable and self-conscious all the time. I used to have being homeschooled wasn't super helpful as far as like the social anxiety went. When I was 14, I could sit down with a 40-year-old man and talk about the Bible for like 3 days, no problem, no like super easy. Put me in the room with another 14-year-old and be like, you guys have a conversation, and I'm beat red, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell this kid, so I just start lying. So yeah, very socially awkward. Played some sports, started like, everything was very, I suffer to this day from like delusions of grandeur. I would have these like crazy wild thoughts about what I like wanted to do, but I couldn't take action or follow through on almost anything. Like I wanted to play for the University of North Carolina. I would practice and play basketball like constantly, but and in practice I could do like okay, but meanwhile the second a game came along, like I am horrible. Like I can't perform. I'm way too nervous. My uniform looks weird on me, and I can't take it. So I remember when I was like 17, dude, I would walk into high school and I would just be like, just don't lie, man. Like they know you're lying. Like everybody knows. Like please, for the love of God, just don't say anything. Just go into school and just don't say anything to anybody. Like if nothing else. And then they would be like, hey Zach, like how was your weekend? I'd be like, took my motorcycle out this weekend. Like just like crazy nonsense would just come out of my mouth, and it was I was embarrassed about that for like a long time. Turns out lots of high school kids lie. It's sort of a thing. But anyway, so back to I'm very uncomfortable. Don't know this yet. Like I'm just going through life like this. Get invited to a party. Finally, and my buddy Jordan invites me to this party, and I go, and I've talked up a big game up to this point. Like I'm like, hey dude, like we're gonna go crazy this weekend. You can finally see like in me and all my glory. So we get there, he lines up 3 shots of vodka for him and 3 shots of vodka for me, and he's like, "Oh, this is how we're starting off." And of course, I gotta live up to this now. So I take the 3 shots of vodka, I get them down. That was more so, like, I think adrenaline was just, like, coursing through my veins. I don't remember, like, it being bad or anything. I just got it down. But I do remember 10 minutes later, looking around the room, and I was like, and I remember thinking to myself, this is how normal people feel all the time. Like this, whatever this just did to me, this is how normal people go through life. It's like I was walking around with a weighted vest on and I just didn't know it until somebody took it off of me. All of a sudden it was like, oh man, like you're telling me it's this easy? Like it's been, every step is so hard. And all of a sudden you take the weight off and I'm like, yeah, I can walk, no problem. This is easy. And I remember just being like, yeah, my parents messed me up. And that's why I'm the way that I am, and everybody else gets to walk around life like this. It just takes me 3 shots of vodka, and then I'm good, and then I can act like everybody else, and then I can be normal, and then I can get through life. So I wasn't a super slow progression for me. I experienced that, and then my sole mission in life was do this constantly, as often, every single day. I can't. This is it for me. This is all I'm about. It worked. It worked really, really freaking well. At the beginning, it did a lot for me. Got me through hard times. Made me social. I learned how to be social. I learned how to talk to people. I was able to get jobs that I wasn't able to get. Alcohol really at the beginning didn't ruin a whole lot for me. It actually made things a lot better. I wasn't nearly as much of a liar when I drank. I didn't realize this because later on when I show up to AA, I think the drinking's my problem. that alcohol is the problem, and I find out later that that's not the case. So I'm living like this. I get a fake ID right away. I can drink. I already lived by myself. I got a job. I worked all the time. Drank as much as I could, and that was my life. I got introduced to AA by a guy, awesome dude, who worked as a mechanic at the bay next to me. Every day I would come in, and the guys would ask me like what I got up to the night before, because I always had some crazy stories about what I was up to. Little did I know, the guys working at the bay next to me had been sober for years, and just heard like all these stories. Never once said anything about it. Never pushed it down my throat. Nothing. He waited until this one like random Wednesday morning came in, and I was a mess. And I came in, I was all messed up. And one of the guys was like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Dude, like, I really shouldn't feel like this on a Wednesday morning, Like, I'm like really messed. I'm like really banged up right now, and I'm only 19. And I remember he just came over to me and he was like, "Hey man, like, I used to tell a lot of the same stories that I've heard you tell, and I'm not saying you need to do anything, but if you ever want to stop and feel like you can't, just let me know." And he planted this like little seed, this little like idea in my mind about like maybe I'm taking things a little too far. I knew that I was drinking excessively. I was intentionally doing so. It was not like a thing that was, I don't know what's going on here. Like, it's unusual the way that I'm drinking to begin with, and I was aware of that. So I decided, I was like, all right, like, I got to cut back. My girlfriend was super mad at me about all this stuff at the time. I'm like, maybe it'll be good to blame it all on all this drinking. I'll go to rehab. I told my boss at work, I'm like, I'm going to go to rehab. He was like, cool, like, whatever. And so I show up to rehab, and dude, I had no idea that they wanted me to stop drinking, like, for good. Like, I was really, I showed up, and I was like, so you guys are gonna, like, obviously I take it a little too far. You guys are gonna help me, like, get some therapy maybe, and, like, show me how to drink on, like, the weekends, Thursdays through Sunday, basically. Like, I'm good. How do you just not drink on, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or at least, like, only a little bit, like, keep it down on those days. And they looked at, I thought they were nuts. They were talking to me, and they were like, well, this is, like, sobriety. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, sober. I'm like, for when? And they're like, all the time. I'm like, is that what I'm here for? I'm like, I gotta get out of here, man. This is crazy. Yeah, and they took me to my first AA meeting then, and I remember I got down, and I was like, well, I have no idea what's going on, and I see the steps, the guy's got like the steps on the wall, and I'm reading them, I'm like, we're powerless over alcohol, our lives are unmanageable. I'm like, that's stupid, definitely not true. Step 2, came to believe that a power, and I saw that the P in power was capitalized, and I was like, I know where they're going with this. Not having it. This is a God thing. They're trying to get me back to church. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm out. Been down that road. Ruined me. I'm not into this at all. So I left, and I really didn't try and get back in. I will say, like, I had a good time. What step 1 really means to me, like today, what I found makes me an alcoholic. I had to do a lot of suffering to get to, and it's really what happens when I try and stop drinking I don't start suffering from alcoholism until I decided I didn't want to drink anymore. The first, like, all those years that I was drinking, I had a lot of fun, and, like, even though it was definitely excessive, a lot of poor choices, all this kind of stuff, there was no point where I thought to myself, like, man, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this. Every day was like, this is what I live for. This is all I know. This is what I'm here for. I just want to get a little better at it, or not as many consequences for it, stuff like that. It wasn't until one day where I was like, I do not want to drink anymore. I don't want to drink tonight, man. Like, I do not want, I can't keep doing this. And then I drank anyway, and I thought I was just a crazy person. I was like, I must just be a maniac, because this is the first time I genuinely can say I do not want to do this, and I'm doing it anyway, and it does not make any sense to me. And that's when I started to feel like I actually suffered from true alcoholism, is when I don't want to do it and I do it, or when I stop, there's basically three things the Big Book tells us make me an alcoholic. The first is the physical allergy. So I've always drank differently than other people did. When I consume alcohol, I have little to no control over how much I'm gonna drink that night. How many countless stories I have of when I did get to that point where I would go out and just be like, I'm only gonna have six. Six was like the lowest. I'd be like, that's it. That's all I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna go home. Round 18 comes along, and I'm just sitting there like, how did I let this happen again, man? Like, I can't take it. And that came over and over and over again, and I don't know which point crossed. I crossed a point at some point where I lost that control. I don't know if I ever really had it. I never really tried to stop beforehand, but once I got to that point, there was no going back. The second part is this mental blank spot that I've got. When I get sober, sobriety, I can't stop myself from drinking again. For so long, I thought the first step was, the drugs and the alcohol were my issue. Man, this is ruining everything. I mean, I would admit, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and the drugs and the alcohol are like a huge problem. But take the drugs and the alcohol away, and I get worse. I don't get any better. I don't feel better the longer I'm sober. I know people that had problems drinking, and the second they stopped drinking, their lives immediately started getting better. Their relationships got better, their careers got better, they started going on. They're like, man, this not drinking's great. Like, I feel great, and I feel worse and worse by the second. It's like I can't breathe. Like, every time I'm sober for these periods of time, it's like I'm holding my breath as long as possible until I can drink again, and then that's, when I do it. So through enough pain and suffering got me to the point where I was willing to believe that there was something stronger than me. Alcohol had certainly proved that it was up until that point. I was certainly powerless when it came to drinking there. So something was more powerful than me right there. I was just hoping and praying that something good was also more powerful than me, and was hopefully more powerful than alcohol, because I was not. And I remember for years in and out of mostly in. I would come to meetings constantly. After that, I started coming to meetings. I really didn't stop for a long time. I just didn't believe. I wasn't listening. I yelled at a lot of people, that this was a lot of nonsense. I would show up drunk and then yell at people, and then leave and go to the bar. I'd be like, see, I went to a bunch of your dumb meetings, and here I am. So I thought that I really had to get the God thing down, the higher power thing. I thought I had to get that figured out before I could move forward with anything. And I thought this because I was sponsoring myself. That's where you get these ideas from. It's when you decide to do the steps yourself, that's how you go 5 years where you're like, well, I've got to solve the higher power thing or I can't move on. Nobody said that. I just assumed that was true and acted as such. So it's until I got a sponsor who was armed with the facts about himself, who identified with me, drank like I did, used like I did the things that I did, and I saw that he was different, and that he was sober, and that he was happy, and that he had peace in his life. And I wasn't even going for happy at that point, man. Happiness was far gone for me. So maybe I'll never get to the part where I'm happy, but I just want to get to the part where I don't want to kill myself every time I put the drink down, because when I'm drinking is only slightly better than when I'm sober, because when I'm sober and I don't have the solution of the drinking anymore, I don't know what to do. And I get to that jumping off place where suicide is a great idea, because at least it's over, man. I don't have to do this anymore. So I meet this guy, and I'm telling him, I'm sitting down with him, we're going through the steps. I'm like, yeah, man, it sucks. I can't do my fourth step because I haven't figured this, higher power solution out. And he looked at me and he was like, Zack, it's like, if God came down and sat in this room and started talking to you right now, you are so filled with so much resentment, guilt, remorse, shame, fear, anger. there was no way you would even be able to recognize that he was sitting right in front of you, like trying to talk to you. Like, that's the stuff that we got to get you unclogged in order for you to have access to any kind of power that's bigger than you. Well, if not, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, so what do I do? He's like, oh, we're gonna, write your fourth step out. So I wrote a lot of this stuff down. Started writing all my resentments, all my fears, all this stuff down. It's funny. I don't know if anyone else has this experience. I got all these resentments floating around in my mind. I mean, I'm angry at everybody all the time, taking everybody's inventory. And like as you're writing them down, they're like, oh man, like this is so stupid that I'm still mad about this thing that happened when I was 8 years old. Like, I've lost sleep thinking about this like whole thing. And then the act of like actually writing down what happened is like, I can't believe I'm angry. So there's like, as I'm writing my fourth step, there's a bunch of them that are just disappearing as I'm writing them because it's so absurd to actually look at and read on paper. You're like, I can't, forces it to the logical side of your mind a little bit. Do that. There was a bunch of stuff on my fourth step where for years I swore I'd never admit to another human being. I was like, this is going to my grave. And I had to get to that point where the first time where I genuinely went through the steps, I was like, is it okay if I go over? I didn't realize how long I was taking here. Just a little bit?
Sure.
I'm running out of time here. All right.
Good.
When I decided to go through the steps genuinely and actually give it a shot, I was really at a point where I was like, I'm going to give these steps a shot. I'm going to give AA a shot because I knew deep down that I hadn't really done that. I never stayed sober for very long. I would genuinely usually leave detox and be drunk before I made it home from wherever that was. Because that was all I was thinking about when I was in there. And I had decided, like, I'm going to do this AA thing, and if it does not work, I'm just going to kill myself at the end of it. So that was my plan, like, going in. It's like, worst case scenario, I'm going to do this anyway, so, like, I might as well give this a fair college try. So when I went to write my fourth step out, all this stuff I swore I'd never tell another human being. It was like, all right, well, like, it says you got to tell them, and I have to be fearless and thorough about this whole thing. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to be dead soon anyway, so, like, what's it really matter? He'll have to know all this stuff. At least I don't have to live with it. And so I tell him, and I thought that he was going to get up and walk out of the church. And I genuinely thought, like, I was going to tell this guy, and he was going to be like, you're right, man, there's no hope for you. Like, I'm out of here. You're a terrible piece of, and I'm going to move on. Dude didn't even bat not like it was like I had not said like I had made it into such a thing in my head that today when I sponsor guys, it's some of the first stuff that I'll tell them when we're going over their stuff. It doesn't hold power over me anymore. Like that stuff I can tell people about that kind of thing just to let them know, like, tell me whatever it is, man. Like that doesn't define who I am. I don't lose sleep over that today. It's very relieving and freeing that I didn't know. 6 and 7 really showed me, like, prayed to have God remove these defects of character. I identified all these defects of character that I had, all these fears and resentments and all that kind of stuff. And what those steps really show me is, like, yeah, I can't get rid of them. Like, if my plan is to get rid of these things on my own, like, then I'm screwed. God has to remove this stuff from me. I'm powerless over this, just like I'm powerless over how selfish I am, all my fears, my character defects, my flaws. I'm just as powerless over that stuff as I am over whether or not I pick up a drink. And unless I need God to remove those things from me, and it's in the willingness and the seeking of God that I reap those benefits. It's not in being a perfect person. It's not in act like my actions make me worthy enough. It's in the seeking of those things that I reap some of these rewards. The 8th and 9th step, making these amends, for me, this is up until going through this part, I still had the obsession on me through 8 and 9. I was thinking about drinking constantly. It was still on my mind, and I went out and I made a bunch of amends. Within like 3 days. I just really wanted to stop. I really wanted to feel better, and they were telling me that I would feel better if I started cleaning this stuff up. I was thinking about drinking 24/7. I'm a maniac. I run around making a few of these amends. And then I remember I had saved up $500 and bought this little Buick, like a 94 Buick with burgundy interior. And I was like, I'm going to go to the gym. And I got in the car, and I drove down through 9. It was about a 10-minute drive. And when I got to the gym parking lot, I realized that the radio wasn't playing. I wasn't listening to a podcast. That wasn't on my phone. It was just me silently driving down the street for 10 minutes, and I wasn't thinking about drinking. And it was just for 10 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, something's happening. Like, something is happening. I was at peace for 10 minutes. I can't remember the last time that I went for 10 minutes at peace with myself and just sitting here, not needing constant input and distraction and chaos around me just to drown the noise of my head out. And I felt that, and it sent chills down my spine. I was like, oh man. So then I started making more amends. And I was like, this is amazing stuff. And that brings us to try and do this real quick on the 10 step. At a lot of meetings we talk about, we read the 9-step promises at how many meetings, Great promises. Nothing wrong with those promises. There's a lot of fantastic ones in there. But the step 10 promises, man, like it promises us something in step 10. It says we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I never thought that I would get to that point where I wasn't filled with resentment, and fear and all this kind of stuff. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. We will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given to us without thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protective. We have not even sworn it off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are cocky nor we are afraid. That is our experience, and that is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So the promise that the problem's been removed from me, and it happens automatically, that throughout that cleaning up process and trying, that love and tolerance is our code, the changing in my attitude to try and be of service and try and be helpful, that the byproduct of that is sobriety, is that I don't think about drinking anymore. I don't need to, it's not something that I'm fighting. I'm not constantly in this spot where I'm, like, all right, what do I have to do to distract myself so I don't go out and drink that night? Like, those things don't come into my mind. I don't have to avoid certain places. I don't have to, I don't go that direction. I passed how many liquor stores on the way over here? Like, if I'm going to work some sort of program where we're trying to remove temptation is going to be it, then I'm screwed, man. Like, I really am, because it's everywhere. I don't have to avoid certain aisles at the grocery store. I don't have to avoid going to certain places. As long as I have a good reason to be there, then I can go and do as I please. Sorry, I'm not going to cry. I'm a free man today. I get to walk as free. I get to do what free men do. I'm not a slave to this thing. How long was I stuck as just a slave to this? I had no control over it. It demanded things of me. It made me pay prices that I swore I wasn't willing to pay. And every time it got more expensive, I had to pay it. Started off with just like some jobs here and there. Okay, no big deal. I can get another job. I never had a good job that paid very much anyway. So what does that matter? Acting like it's hard to get a job at Taco Bell. It's not. You can actually get a job at multiple different Taco Bells if you didn't know. They do not care. And that was the price that I would pay for, to drink the way that I wanted to. And then that slowly turned into the respect and love of your friends and your family, and then it turned into my own sanity. Every time it just kept demanding more and more, and every time I just paid it. And I don't have to pay that at all today. I get to enjoy life. I get to wake up and not have those thoughts, so long as I remain in a position where I'm humble and I can think about how my life can be best of service to others. If my thoughts are on other people, then they're not on myself. Because I'm going to help somebody, and either that somebody's going to be somebody else or that somebody's going to be me. But somebody's getting helped, you know, and I know what I help myself to, and I help myself to a drink every single time. So if I'm not helping, you know, same thing with, 10th step, continue to take personal inventory. Inventory is being taken. I'm either taking my own inventory or I'm taking your inventory. But there's no part where I'm not taking inventory. It's happening. It's just, who is the focus on? Is it on me, or am I just taking everybody else's and it's all your problems, you know? So I hope that was able to help someone. Sorry I went over. That's my story.
Awesome stuff. Okay. My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic.
Nick.
Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes if possible. Please keep your shares related to the step if possible. If you feel like drinking or if you had a drink today, please see me or speak to somebody after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We're in a church and on a spiritual journey. And now the floor is now open for personal sharing.